Welcome, Syndicate. In this latest gameplay update, we have introduced ability scores into the game. This is going to be a large change that affects every role you make. However, we feel like this change will be for the better. To help everyone learn how these new scores affect the game, I'm making this video to go over the mechanics, how it applies to new and old characters, and then a deep dive into each specific score. Okay, now let's look into what ability scores are. If you are familiar with other role-playing games like Fallout or D&D, you'll likely have an idea of what ability scores are. They are essentially a numeric representation of a character or creature's physical or mental attributes. These govern your character's capabilities and will affect any role you make in the game. Ability scores take a long time to level up and cost significant amounts of favor to increase, but they improve many aspects of your character when they are leveled up. In the Syndicate system, the way we measure ability scores is on a 0 to 7 scale. If you have no ability score in an attribute, you will be below average compared to the general populace, and any roll associated to that ability score will be done with a -1 modifier. As your ability score goes up, the modifier tied to that ability will raise. At the score of 1, you are neutral and adds nothing. At 2, you're a little talented at that ability, and any roll associated with it can be done with a +1. 3 is a +2, etc., etc., all the way up to the maximum of 7, where any roll associated will be made with an additional 6. If your ability score is maxed, you are extremely talented with these abilities. When you start picking your ability scores, you'll be able to pick 14 without having to spend any favor. After that, the amount of favor each new ability score costs gets exponentially more expensive. There is a maximum of 500 favor you can put towards your ability scores, leading to a total of 26 ability scores. However, when first starting out, these free ability scores can only be used to make a score be a max of 4. Once you start spending favor on ability scores, you can raise it to the 5 through 7 mark. Alright, so to help everyone visualize what I mean, I'm going to show you an example of what a new character can look like now that ability scores are in our game. So, someone comes up with the idea for a character. Let's call them Leon. You want Leon to be a successful bard, one of the best in the land. They've been doing this for years and are already pretty good at it. And so, bam. Let's give them a 4 to charisma. They will be the funniest, best musician you've ever seen. Okay, pets seem fun. Let's give them a bit in animal handling so they can train a raccoon. Wait, raccoons are cute. Okay, some is not enough. We need all. Let's crank that up to 4 as well. Then we can go ahead and decide perception is something that they want high in, and a little bit of mind. So they're definitely not physically the strongest, but they're going to be hilarious and be able to train a lot of animals. Now if we go over here to the cover sheet, we can see on the left how our ability modifiers have upgraded based on our scores. And these skills, persuasion, performance, animal handling, without investing any favor into proficiency, Leon can start rolling with a +3, actually giving credence to you starting saying you are a good bard. And you can still invest in proficiency, increase your ability scores further, or get items to buff up those skills even more. We are really hoping this will allow people to have greater customization when first creating characters, and because there is the restriction where you can only get a max of 26, and make sure that higher level people don't turn into jack of all trades, because ability scores are limited, the choices you make with these numbers will matter. Now, we've gone over some of the basic mechanics and why this can be so fun. Now I'm going to go into a deep dive of each ability score, and what skills and weapons are associated with each ability score. A lot of these are fairly self-explanatory, but it never hurts to review. To start off, let's talk about the body score. This score governs your physical prowess and strength. There are 2 skills associated with body. The first is athletics, which covers most physical activity. If your character needs to climb, swim, lift something, do sick parkour, that'll be covered by athletics. The second skill is endurance. This is the measure of your character's ability to tough something out, whether that's going through a long ice bath or getting punched in the face. Endurance will be the skill you roll. Previously, this was called Constitution, but we went ahead and updated the name. Outside of skills, there are also a good deal of weapons that are tied to the body score. What that means is when you are making an attack with one of these weapons, you also add your body modifier to the roll. So yes, all weapons now have the capability to get an additional +6 to hit if you max out your score. The weapons that body covers are heavy blades, polearms, unarmed, shields, and bludgeons. The body score also buffs the push-through roll. The next ability score here is Dexterity. This is a measure of a character's nimbleness, muscular coordination, and speed. There are 2 skills tied to Dexterity: Agility, which is a character's speed and acrobatic ability, and then Stealth, which is sneakiness. Weapons associated with Dexterity are light blades, polearms, and unarms. Polearms and unarmed can also use Dexterity instead of the body score if the player would rather go that route. Think with unarmed more of a kung fu dodgy style than an all-out brawler that would be tied to body. Dexterity also covers the roles of quick reflexes and initiative. So now every time you roll initiative in battle, you'll add your Dexterity modifier to that. Next ability score I want to go over is the Mind score. So this is your mental intelligence, and it'll help you cast and defend yourself against magic. This ability score has a lot of specialized skills associated with it, and a lot of our brand new skills. In this video, I'm just giving a brief overview of each of the skills, as I want to focus on those ability scores, but here are the following skills. So History, which is a new tree, this is a character's ability to recall historical information and know how to apply it. The next skill tied to mental is People. This has to do with your character's cultural knowledge of a people, but also more in-depth, like mentalist abilities and knowing psychology. Here's a more familiar skill associated with Mind, and that is the Tinker skill. So the Tinker skill covers your ability to understand and build machines. We also have the Academic skill tied to Mind. You might notice that some of these look familiar, and I do have to be honest, we did change the mental power tree to be called Academics, but we also adjusted a couple of the skills inside of it as well. Now, Alchemy, that is also tied to the Mind, and that's your ability to look for herbs and being able to mix those into potions. And here, in my opinion, is one of the coolest new skills, and that is Mysticism. This covers a character's ability to recall and understand magical information, interpret and identify magical phenomenon, and can be used to perform minor magical effects. Now, the weapons associated with the Mind ability are all magic spells. So anytime you cast a magical spell and a roll to hit capacity, you're going to add the Mind modifier onto that roll. The next ability score to go over is Spirit. This is tied to your character's spiritual connection to nature, and their ability to sense and connect with spiritual or religious entities. First skill I want to go over that's tied to this modifier, unsurprisingly, is the Spirituality tree. This tree has to do with being able to see and communicate with spooky, scary ghosts, religious knowledge, and then also some cool additions to mental communications that we have thought up. Another new skill that's tied to the Spirit ability score is Fieldcraft. This skill is about all things natural, from knowing things about plants and animals to wilderness survival and tracking. Non-magic healing is also a skill tied to this ability score, and the next two are ones you likely are expecting since nature was mentioned, and those are animal handling and riding. There are weapons associated with this ability score, and these are animal transformations. If you are able to shift into an animal when you make an attack or use a feat, it's the Spirit modifier you will be adding to your rolls. The reason we decided to associate it with this roll is, although yes, when you shift into an animal and you hit something, that's like a physical force hitting them, but the ability to make that animal more real and more powerful relies on your character and kind of their spirit transforming correctly into this animal that you're able to, and so we felt it would be better to associate it with that Spirit modifier. Alternatively, if your Spirit score is not high, you can use the animal's base body score in your attack. This will not stack with your Spirit score, it will be one or the other, and it isn't based on your body or dex score, it's the animal's. Light, dark, and wind magic can also use a Spirit score instead of your Mind score if you wish. Now, Charisma is the next ability score. This is a measure of your social skills and just how cool you are. As expected, Performance and Persuasion fall here, but those skills are joined by two others, Intimidation and Deception. Now, the last ability score I want to go over actually used to be a skill, but we felt it could use an upgrade, and that is Perception. This is your character's ability to see details in a scene. There are 2 weapon groups tied to the perception ability, and that is bows and guns, but no skills are actually tied to perception. That might seem odd until I cover with you a unique rule about our ability score rolls. So when it comes to skills, you can actually make any skill roll coupled with any of the ability scores. As you can see here on the cover sheet, this ability score can be altered next to the skill. This is called using an alternative ability score. Now, I haven't been wasting the last 10 minutes of your time. Each skill does have a default ability score associated with it and represents the most common ability score that will be utilized with that check. However, other ability scores can be used in various situations. For example, the Mysticism skill. This is commonly associated with the Mind ability. That's why we have Mind written out here as a reminder on the cover sheet. But during a quest, your QM might say, hey, you're looking for something really specific in this magical text, so go ahead and make a Mysticism skill tied with your Perception ability modifier. Or, if somebody's trying to sneak up on you, make a Stealth roll with your Perception ability modifier to catch them in the act. Stealth is typically dexterity, but if somebody's sneaking up on you, you're not doing anything dexterous, you're trying to see somebody else coming, so your knowledge of stealthing and your perception ability can combine to make a stealth perception roll to try to spot them. So yeah, that pretty much covers the basics for the ability scores that are now in the game. It's going to affect almost every roll you make, we think for the better, giving everybody a bit more uniqueness to their character and strength when they start off right off the bat. If you guys do have further questions, feel free to drop them and talk to gameplay. And this is my first time making a video like this, so if you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop them and talk to gameplay as well. I'd be happy for the feedback. I hope you all have a great night.